And again, I'm going to make sure everyone knows that there's the Quad County African American Chamber of Commerce, and I am Sherman Jenkins. I am the chairman of the board of the Quad County African American Chamber of Commerce. I want all of you to know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website after this meeting is concluded, I should say. You'll be able to go to www.quadcountyAAchamber.org to be able to view this webinar, as well as the prior two webinars that we had as part of our series on cannabis. So again, I hope that you will find this cannabis virtual fair informative and inspiring. And let me give you a little bit of information about the Quad County African American Chamber. In February 1993, a number of African American business owners in Aurora, Illinois began meeting to discuss ways to increase the number of African American businesses and provide assistance to existing businesses. The decision was made to form a Chamber of Commerce that would focus on issues relevant to African American businesses and pave the way to an eventual partnering with other chambers that were in existence at that time. In the 27 years of the Chamber's existence, many African American businesses have been helped through workshops, seminars, now in this case, webinars, grants, loans, and scholarships to African American high school and college students. The Chamber covers the counties of Kane, Kendall, DuPage, and Will, and continues to enhance the commercial environment and improve the marketing opportunities that result in high-performing, profitable African American businesses in the Quad Counties. Now, with that little bit of commercial enterprise out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. The recreational cannabis sales in Illinois totaled $37.3 million in the month of April, as the state continued to experience strong activity amid the first full month of coronavirus-fueled shelter-in-place order. April sales marked the second highest monthly total for Illinois' recreational program since it was launched January 1st of this year. Adult use sales in the state for the first 4 months totaled $147.2 million. We have a panel of experts, cannabis business owners, and veterans in the industry who will help you to understand the cannabis business and contracting opportunities. With us today, and who's going to lead it off, is Mr. Seun Adediji, who is the founder and CEO of Elev8 Cannabis, a national dispensary chain with stores coast to coast. As the youngest African-American man to own a cannabis dispensary, Seun, I like, I'm gonna get it right eventually before this hour and a half is up. But being that you were from the south side of Chicago, from my own home stomping grounds, I'm gonna get it right. Normally we would have said, yo, dude, you up, you can go and make this happen, but we're gonna keep it professional, all right? And you have been in the forefront of lines of legalization process in multiple states. Also with us is Ms. Amber Center. She is the founder and CEO of Breeze Distro, a house of infused cannabis product brands and distribution located in Oakland, California. So when we got started, the sun was just up and singing that old Al Jarreau song, Good Morning Sunshine. So we're glad to have her on with us. As well as she's the CEO of Shady Pines Box Club, a social equity business and cannabis subscription box available in California. Hopefully to be joining us will be Mr. Dan Pettigrew. He is a founder of Viola Brands, a bellwether for Black ownership in the white-dominated weed industry. He's a native of Chicago's South Side also. He launched the company in 2011 with Al Harrington, a longtime family friend who was playing for the Denver Nuggets at that time. And then with us Also is Deborah Dillion. She is the founder and president of Dillion Telecommunications, Inc., Dillion Power Group, and DeBarco International. She was Chicago's first Black female union electrical contractor and now serves as IDPH medical cannabis caregiver. She is a member of the Illinois Women in Cannabis and is a certified dispensary trainer. So as you see, we have some top-notch folks who's going to provide some great information for you. And those of you who are with us today in the chat area, as you know, if you're familiar with Zoom, you can shoot your questions to us. And I'm not sure if Mr. Seun is going to have a PowerPoint. If you do, you have access to the screen, the share screen if you like. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to a fellow former Southsider, Mr. Seun, to make sure that he's going to cover how and why and how did you get into the cannabis business. And he's going to give us some good information. So take it away.
Hey, thank you so much for the introduction. A+ for effort on trying to pronounce my complicated name. So thank you for that. So my name is pronounced Seun Adediji. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and I migrated to Chicago, Illinois at the age of 3. My parents and we lived in Riverdale for some time. And while we stayed there, we moved around quite a bit. My dad got a better job from living in Riverdale to Joliet, and we moved to Bolingbrook and lived there for some time too. I got started in the cannabis industry. It came out of necessity. Like I needed to do something. When I was in Illinois, I lived in a not such wholesome household, if I would say. My stepmom and my family, we were struggling. My parents, didn't have a lot of money. We didn't come from wealth. So I was the kid that had a duffel bag, and I used to sell candy and gum in the streets in school and say, hey man, I know you like a Lexus, your breath stink, I got some gum for you. I then upgraded to selling cannabis. And when I was selling cannabis at the age of 13, I got arrested for marijuana possession. At this time, it was the worst case ever. Being in an African household, our parents believe in whoopings. And I've never been whooped that hard in my life. And it seemed like my life was over. Everyone said, I could not go to college. I couldn't obtain anything great in life due to this potential record. Luckily for me, my record was dropped. So they dropped the charges due to my age. I then pivoted and I moved to Texas. On a high level, coming from a household that was not so loving and caring, living in Texas, I moved in with my auntie, she was the first woman to ever show me love and to really tell me that my past does not have to define my future. She gave me the ability to start looking and take school more seriously, which I did. I started joining FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. I started really applying myself in school. And that's where my business, turning my street hustle and combining my book smart, I discovered later on down the road, I pivoted, moved to Washington State. And at that time, cannabis became legalized. And I was 21. I was working as a marketing manager for Sprint. I was making a decent amount of money, but I did not see any trajectory upward. I felt like there was a cap on my growth, and there was not a lot of us in high position. In my whole district, I was the only African-American marketing manager. My district was the most diverse district. I wanted to really make true change. There was different philosophy in the corporate world that I truly did not believe in, different ethos that did not fit with how I felt people should be treated. And I saw the cannabis industry as a way to really start something, to create generational wealth, not just for myself, but for people that look like me, for people that have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. And right now, African Americans, I see the injustices going on, the police brutality, And I tell people all the time, one of the things that is happening is we have no ownership. There is no consequence associated to when a white man kills us. We protest, we come together, we ban. When Trayvon Martin died, we came together, we banned, we marched, but there's something that's missing. The consistent, we look down history, I see it over and over. We've had mayors, we've had city councilor, but the biggest thing that we were missing was capital, was ownership. And so I wanted to change that. And the way to change that, I saw the cannabis industry as the alcohol industry, but with a different substance. This industry is so new. There's 50 states in the United States, and there's only 33 states with some type of cannabis legalization. Now, to get into the cannabis industry, the capital associated to it is tremendous. You have about $1 million to $200 million that most people start off with. An average retail company, at times, depending if you have experience or you don't have the experience, if you really want to succeed, depending if you are in a saturated market or a limited licensed market, could range from anywhere from 500,000 all the way to millions of dollars. And 500,000 if you have an experience. So I wanted to find a way to be a bridge to help more of our people, to create generational wealth. So I embarked on this journey. I later tell people I became the COE. I became the chief of everything. I legitimately did everything. I became the janitor. I became the CEO, the COO, the CFO, whatever you named it, I had to do it because I didn't have capital. I could not go to Bob and say, Bob, please borrow me $500,000. Please borrow me $3 million. Like some of my white counterparts that I talked to. I had a friend that, we sat down, we had lunch, and he was telling me his journey. He said, Seun, this is so hard, man. I went to my dad and they only borrowed me $5 million and it's been tough. I said, your dad borrowed you $5 million. To start a cannabis business. I said, Jesus Christ. I wish, tell your dad, if that was tough for you, sir, let's switch. And, I sat there because when I started, I was 21 years old with a dream. I wanted to get in. I didn't have mentorship. There was not enough of us in the cannabis industry. And at the time, data showed we had less than 4.3% African Americans within the cannabis industry. In an industry right now where if you look at Massachusetts, they're making $100,000 a day on average due to the limited license that they hold here in Mass. So I'm going to go back to what I was discussing. When I started, I was 21. And to get into the cannabis industry, you have to look at real estate. You have to understand the laws. And most states, they have buffers, zoning buffer. So what that does is it restricts your property acquisition. It restricts where you can actually put your retail dispensary, your grow. And what that then does is increase the price of the property. For example, right now, people in Massachusetts are paying anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 a month in lease in the hopes of winning a license. This is not guaranteed. This is just to get in the position so you can actually be in the running to actually win something. Most of us, African Americans, we don't have that. We don't have that privilege to be spending that tremendous amount of money and in the hopes of winning. So going back to Illinois, because this is the biggest, this is why we're here. We as minority business owners, we've seen the injustice. We've also have experience within the cannabis industry. So when my home state of Illinois said that they were going to legalize recreational cannabis, C.K. Ballard, which is the CEO of Good Tree Capital, and we were invited to speak to Senator Staines. We were invited to speak with Kelly Cassidy and to share our insight within the cannabis industry and what Illinois could do better to make social equity at the front of this legislation. So while we were there, we came up with a game plan. In all the states in the United States, the biggest barrier of entry outside of capital is real estate. As I mentioned earlier, the reason why real estate is a big cost of barrier is due to the fact of zoning restriction and limited license that they're giving out per state. Especially in Illinois and Chicago, they're giving out less than 80 licenses. So what we did was we went there, and the shout out to them. They were really progressive. They were willing to listen and to make sure that they put something in place that gave us an opportunity to have a seat at the table. So while we were there, we spoke about two things that we pushed. One was removing real estate as a criteria of entry. So before you apply in every state outside of Illinois, you need to acquire real estate. By acquiring real estate, it then gives you the ability to apply for a license. That is very expensive because you're not guaranteed to win the 75 new licenses that Illinois is giving out. So they took that for retailers. Now, the second step was capital. In every state that there was some type of minority inclusion or social equity, the biggest hurdle for minorities is capital. So we pitched and we advocated for a revolving loan using tax dollars coming from the cannabis industry to put back into a $35 million loan for minorities that are looking to get into the cannabis industry. So that was the second thing we did. Now, the third thing is to get the information out there to people that actually need it. So people on the south side, on the west side of Chicago that have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. So what we did, we then created Elevate Our Community. We went to, we actually worked with Representative, not Tori Hutchison, I can't remember her name, but we held seminars in Inglewood. We had seminars and we went out, we passed out flyers. And what happened when Illinois became legalized was they created a law the law was 800 pages plus. How can minorities read 800 pages plus that are affected by the war on drugs and they live in a disproportional area? They probably work about 3 jobs. I did not know how people, and keep in mind, we've successfully done this in 2 states. And we had a difficult time with Illinois application. So for me, it was like, if we're having a tough time, how about the other people that don't have the resources or have the knowledge that we have? So we started the PowerPoint presentation where we rented out hotels, we rented out different places, and we invited people, we paid for everything, and it was a free seminar in a partnership with Good Tree Capital. They're the largest minority investment company in the cannabis industry. And when we did that, we noticed that we decreased the 800 pages and we made it 50 pages, where it was a 50-page PowerPoint where we took out key information and we presented it to our audience so they had an opportunity to see exactly what they needed to do to move on to the next level. And I think Ms. Deborah was actually someone that came to our event at Elevate Our Community. It was free insight. And then the next step was application. How do we get people the ability to apply for this licenses? And the next step was holding seminars in order to do that. The financial group is called Good Tree Capital. The CEO is based in Chicago, Illinois. He's a Harvard grad. He's a minority just like us, and he's doing really great things within the cannabis industry. And the couple of things that we wanted to get out there was, how do we then get people the ability to apply for this application in Illinois? So we did a whole seminar with Minorities for Medical Marijuana, where they had basically sit-down seminars. We brought in attorneys, we brought in application writers, and we helped minorities that were struggling with the applications in Illinois to get their application to whereby they have at least the ability to submit it and get it reviewed and have the potential to actually win a license. Because right now there's only 4,000, there's only 75 licenses they've given out in retail, and there was about 4,000 applications. Even if they don't all win, just having the ability to know that you have a chance is better than not having a chance at all. So that's a few things that Elev8 Cannabis has done within the cannabis industry. Now, for our success, we've had a lot of success and failures. I started when I was 21, like I was saying earlier, and I struggled. I was underfunded. I had only $50,000 in a dream. I slept in my shop for a whole year. And I used to sell in the streets. And when I sold in the street, I used to say, spot me the product, right? So I then I switched the terminology and I started asking for consignments because we didn't have enough money to actually buy products. So I started using consignment and I started growing my company little by little. And now we're multi-state operators and we have shops in Massachusetts. But keep in mind, I slept in my shop for a whole year. I got rejected for 2 years. Every time I went to lease a property, every time whatever I did, it felt like, you know, I would call and say, hey, look, I want this property. We did our due diligence. Is cannabis approved? When I get there, they will tell me, oh, you know, my cousin Bob already leased out the property. He's about to open up a dispensary. So, you know, the biggest advice I tell people, you know, get an attorney, understand the laws associated to the city and the state that you're looking to open up your dispensary, and make sure you get mentorship. Mentorship is key to success. I've made a lot of mistakes and I've failed a lot of times before I succeeded. And I think the big thing for us as minorities, we're not willing to help one another. Sometimes in some cases, we're not banding together. Knowledge is power. And some people, for some reason, feel like because I struggle, you should struggle too. And I think that we need to destroy that mindset in order to say, you know what, I struggle. If you're hungry, you have the passion. Here's my mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes. We need to start sharing information so we put our people in a position to win. Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to help us but us. I don't care what anybody said. At the end of the day, nobody's going to help us but us. So we need to band together. This industry, they're making a killing. They're making crazy amount of money. There is no reason why we should be selfish with information. There's no reason why we should be selfish at all. We can all create generational wealth from this industry. We've been locked up and sent to jail. Let's change it up. And I'm done. Thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate you bringing me on here.
Fantastic, fantastic, man. That was really giving us a good insight in terms of how and why you got into the industry and what you're doing. And if you can hang on with us, I'm quite certain there's going to be more questions that's going to come on. But I'm going to move into our next presenter. But Seun, if you can stay on with us, I really appreciate it, because I'm getting these questions now from a number of people when we get towards the end. But next up is going to be Miss Amber Center. She is the founder and CEO of Breeze Distro, and she's going to talk about what is the secret to staying in business, and you know, what is it like? You heard Seun, but you know, what are some of the things you can do to enhance your operations? And being out there in California, sunny California, I'm quite sure she's has that opportunity to really work well. So Amber, if you can come on and tell us what is the secret to staying in business?
Yeah, sure. So good morning, everyone. My name is Amber Center. I do a few things in cannabis. I did want to mention too that I'm from Zion, Illinois, born and raised.
That's right.
I went to Zion Benton Township High School. My folks are from Lake County, you know, and Waukegan, North Chicago area.
All right.
Yeah, that's where I'm from, and I moved out here to California in February of 2014. So I've been here in California for a little over 6 years. And like I mentioned, I do a few things in cannabis. I am a CEO and founder of Breeze Distro, which is a licensed manufacturing and distribution company here in Oakland. I also have a subscription box where we sell our brands direct to the customer through a monthly subscription box service throughout California. And I'm also a co-founder and executive director of Supernova Women. And we are a group of women of color that works to empower people of color to become business owners within this burgeoning cannabis industry. So we do that through education. We're actually hosting a free webinar today, right after this webinar. So please come and join us. And we'll be talking about how to gain shelf space with retailers here in California. If you are a vendor or you have a product and you're looking on how you can get on some of the biggest shelves and biggest retailers here in the state of California. I think the information is also very going to be able to be translated to Illinois market as well. So definitely come check that out. So we host webinars. We usually do a lot of in-person events. We do a lot of network building. And we also advocate very heavily to lower barriers of entry for Black and Brown and those affected by the war on drugs. So my organization, Supernova, we worked very closely with the city of Oakland to implement the country's first social equity program. So we helped kind of like develop a lot of this framework that all of the municipalities across the country are now replicating today. So we worked with the city to set up a loan fund with 0 interest loans. We worked with the city to set up a technical assistance program. So now social equity businesses can get free technical assistance from a contractor that's been contracted by the city. And there's also an incubation. So social equity businesses are incubated by other businesses here in the city of Oakland. There's a number of different benefits and parts to this program. Also, I was chosen to be the incubator for a new program. It's part of the social equity program. It is a social equity manufacturing facility. It's a shared facility. So social equity businesses, operators will be able to come into my facility. I will help them develop and come up with products that make sense for the California market. And then I'm going to help them get that product to market and get it on different shelves throughout the state of California. So that's a bit about what I do and what Supernova does. And so the question that you posed was how to stay in business here in California, or how to get that license and how to keep that license. And that is really the trick, the tricky part to it, right? It's hard enough to get the license, but how do you maintain the license and stay in business? Okay. I've been in business for 4 years now. So, once I hit my 5-year mark, I'm definitely going to be celebrating out here.
All right, but you got past the 3 years.
Yes. Okay. So it hasn't been easy, that's for sure, especially with all of the changes, regulatory changes that we've gone through here in California. We had a very robust gray market. We had something that's kind of like a set of rules, regulation, but no taxation here. It was Proposition 215, and that took place back in 1996. And California had this market going for about 20 years. And we legalized in January of 2018. And a lot of folks had to transition over from this gray market to this legal market. And that was proved to be very challenging for most operators, and also opened the door for much bigger, well-funded white folks, men, people that don't look like me, to kind of come in, swoop in, take all the licenses, and really try to dominate the industry. And so that's why these social equity programs are really important. But as far as staying in business, it's tough out here in California. We have so many expenses now, and the cost of staying in business is extremely high. The margins are very thin. And so you've got to really be smart about not only your staffing, but how you're spending money. So we have a lot of tax implications, and this is across the state. There's 280E tax, which doesn't allow you to write off most costs of goods as you would in any other business. So, cannabis businesses are taxed upwards of 30-40% in their gross revenues. So that, as you can imagine, leaves us with razor thin margins to work with. So I encourage many operators to do a number of things. First of all, get a tax attorney or an accountant that really understands these 280E tax laws and can help you figure out how you can mitigate some of that tax burden with different activities throughout your facility. And really, it's just a matter of even how you're doing things, where you're doing things in your facility. It's just changing the order and structure of things. It's kind of a bit silly, but that's how it is, and that's what we're working with. Okay. And also automating your facility. That's really important. We have a lot of smaller operators that feel like maybe they can't afford certain types of equipment, or just don't know that this type of equipment exists, or thinks that it's out of their reach. And it's really important for folks to know what's available to them to help them cut down costs. So, for instance, here in Oakland, we have the most Black and brown operators in the country. In the social equity program alone, we have over 150 operators. 90% of those folks are Black, and they're all small businesses. So it's really important for folks to have resources, right? So automating your facility, especially in the age of COVID, where we have to practice social distancing in our facilities, can't have that many people in there anyway. Like the demand for cannabis is still very high, and we've got to be able to compete with some of these larger businesses. So being able to do as much as you can in-house, and not send things out, and automate your facilities is really, really key in being able to maximize your profits. Also, being able to leverage your license is very, very important here in California. Leveraging your license to get the most out of it. There's a number of different license types here. You can be a manufacturer, you can be a distributor, you can be a transporter, and then there's different types of manufacturing. You could be just an infusion specialist, you could be a packager. There's all different kinds of things that you can do. And there's different avenues of making money from these things. So, for instance, if you're a manufacturer, you can do a lot of white labeling. And white labeling is, making products and packaging them on behalf of another company. I do white labeling in my manufacturing facility as well, because I want to keep my staff working, and I want to be able to leverage our license as much as we can. Like we do have the biggest margins manufacturing our own product, but there's not enough retail outlets here in California, especially now with COVID happening, to be able to have my folks working only on our products full time. There's only 300, maybe even less than that, retail outlets currently operating in California, because a lot of them have been closed due to COVID, or are not, the brick and mortars are not seeing as much volume as they would, but the delivery services here in California have really seen a huge increase in sales. So being able to take advantage of white labeling is key in just making some extra income outside of just selling your own products.
If I could jump in there real quick, how do you go about identifying clients for your white labeling?
Yeah, sure. So here in California, we have a database of all of the different licensed cannabis companies, as well as their license type. So you can go through and filter who you like to target. You can download that list. And then what we do is we send out MailChimp emails. You know, you can use Constant Contact, MailChimp, any kind of email software, and we just send out email blasts to those folks. And I have a salesperson dedicated to doing that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
And yeah, so white labeling is great. If you're a distributor, you can make money just transporting around products, so moving it from cultivators to manufacturers, from manufacturers to retailers. There's transport fees that you can charge, as well as if you are a distributor that has a facility, you can charge folks just for storage. Like I have a few clients that I don't even distribute for. They just need a place in the Bay Area to house their products. And so I charge them a storage fee. And we have to do nothing. It just sits there in our facility, and we make money off of these things. So it's really important for folks to be able to figure out ways to leverage their license to get the most out of it, because you better believe that the other folks are doing it. So we've got to make sure that we're staying competitive with them.
Great.
Yeah.
As our listeners and viewers, as you can see, you know, you're getting a good cross section of, you know, what it was like to get into it, and what now that you're into it, ways to stay in business. I mean, leveraging your license, that is key, because it's just because you got the license doesn't mean you have to stay in your one box. There's so many other boxes that can be able to bring you in revenue that can, in order to keep your business going, so that in 10 years, Amber would be able to say, I've been in business for 15 years and I've got a chateau over in Spain, over in Nigeria. You know, I mean, the money will roll in, and that's what we want to hear, we want to see. So, Amber, I want to thank you for giving us insight, and hopefully you can hang on a little bit more with us. But because I know you have to go because you have another one, but I'm gonna ask a couple of real quick questions. How many employees do you have?
I have 8 employees.
Okay.
So we have a pretty small ship, but we definitely maximize what we have.
Now,
we're grossing around $75K a month right now, and I'm hoping that we'll be at 100 by the end of the year.
Now, like here in Illinois, if you select employees from the disproportionate areas that has been identified, you get a certain amount of credits and so forth. Do they have that kind of situation in California? Did that account for you getting the license by hiring people from areas that were hard hit by the war on drugs?
So we do have a social equity program.
Okay.
First one in the country. My business, Shady Pines Box Club, which is actually a delivery service where we, this is actually the box right here. So it's a delivery service, and the weed comes in a box like that every month. And that business is a social equity business. But we've also been able to, we can do either on-demand deliveries, or we can do this like subscription type of box, which is what we decided to do because we do have another business that keeps us pretty busy, the wholesale business. But this is our direct to retail business. But we can also leverage that delivery license to sell products at events. So of course, COVID's happening and there's no events happening right now, but when they do, we can go to cannabis cups and things like that, and we are authorized to sell products at these big events. So that's also another way to leverage your license.
Now, you talked about the demand. Where is the demand for cannabis coming from out there in California?
I mean, so it's definitely changed since the stay-in-place orders or stay-in-shelter orders have taken place. And there's a lot of folks sitting at home, chilling at home, and wanting to smoke weed, you know? So a lot of it now is folks that would maybe smoke on the weekends, things like that. They've started to maybe smoke every day now, and it's everyone, you know. It's
Is it a certain ethnic group that is it more white folks doing it?
Yeah, it's white folks, it's Black folks. Actually, the fastest growing demographic are seniors.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're necessarily smoking cannabis, but they're figuring out ways to ingest it. So it could be through tinctures, through edibles. We've seen edibles increase 34% since the stay-in-place order was put into place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are just really trying cannabis for the first time, or increasing their cannabis use because they're at home. Yeah, there's just there's been a huge demand, a huge increase in demand, but we're seeing that the biggest increase is from seniors.
Okay, and before you go, you said there's only 300 operations. Is it dispensing operations in California for the whole state?
For the entire state, only 300 open right now, and that is definitely not enough. But because California allowed the municipalities to decide if they want it there, which most of the states do. Crazy enough, a lot of the municipalities here banned cannabis and banned any kind of cannabis activity. And that, coupled with COVID and a lot of these dispensaries not being able to be open and only offering curbside, or just closed because the curbside wasn't enough to sustain the business, we're down to very few retailers. So delivery services have really seen a huge increase. One of my colleagues said he saw his business increase almost double since stay-in-place order has taken effect. And I mean, he's doing over 100 deliveries a day in the Bay Area. That's excellent when you're looking at a per person spend of around $100. Like that's pretty good.
Definitely. Well, definitely. Well, Amber, thank you very much. And I know you've got to shoot off in a little bit with regards to your own webinar, and but this has been great information, and it just segues into our next presenter, who's going to be talking about more of contracting and niches in the cannabis industry, and that's Ms. Deborah Dillion, who also she's going to talk about, she's been an advocate for hiring of older workers in the cannabis and hemp industries, and she's going to talk about why that is important. So Deborah, take it away. And for those of us young people, we're going to be interested in learning more about why seniors are doing what they're doing. And so again, take it away, Ms. Dillion, and we're glad you're with us today.
Thank you, Sherman. Thank you, Seun. Tell Siki I said, hey. And thank you so much, Amber, for your wonderful presentation and your segue into this. The Illinois cannabis legalization was promoted as an opportunity to get out of the black market and into legal cannabis on a large scale. Through the front door, with an Illinois Department of Finance and Professional Regulations dispensary license, or an Illinois Department of Agriculture craft, infused, or transport license. Well, I'm not going to get into everything that's been going on around the licensing process, but I'm going to ask the question, what if there is no real door? Can I sell doors to cultivators and existing dispensary owners? Can I get a subcontract to install or supply doors? Well, that's how I got into business in the first place, in a highly regulated telecommunications business, installing systems in an even more regulated federal contracting arena, and in an even more regulated niche market of government hospital telecommunication systems. We did nurse call, code blue, telephone, and security systems. And my primary government agencies were the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and Department of Veterans Affairs. And these contracts prepared me for the less and even still highly regulated cannabis industry. I became Chicago's first Black union electrical contractor for IBEW Local 134, and it took 7 years of pursuing union affiliation before the Brotherhood would let me join. Then no one would hire my firm for any substantial work. So I pursued small jobs with little or no profit, and my first break was under $1,000. I installed a $500 telecom system on a crane for Walsh Construction, which is one of the largest general contractors in the city of Chicago, on the McCormick Place expansion. Then I added Walsh and McCormick Place to my resume and resent my resume to the other general contractors. Then I got a call for minority participation on 2 more large projects. McHugh Construction, the second largest general contractor in Illinois, hired us to install elevator phones at the new US Gypsum building and the new Blue Cross Blue Shield building. We barely broke even. However, I was establishing a track record and a reputation of excellence, and I kept updating and resending my resume. Then I couldn't get a bond for large jobs, $50,000 and up. So I did subcontracts. I did joint ventures with larger firms who had bonds and needed minority or female participation. I did joint ventures with Commonwealth Edison and with Meade Electric, the largest electrical contractor in Illinois. Those relationships lowered my materials cost by 50 to 70%, and they established my firm with their suppliers. And finally, I got my own bond for $50,000, and in 2 years grew the bond to $5 million. I grew from 1 crane installation to 80 union and 5 office workers before I retired in 2006, and I was featured on a full page in Crane's Business magazine. I was in today's Chicago Women's first edition of 100 Women in Chicago Making a Difference, and Oprah Winfrey was in my inaugural 100 group. After retiring in 2006 due to an automobile accident, for the next 10 years, I continued to pursue my 30-year alternative wellness hobby that included plant-based medicine and herbs. And at the request of my best friend, who had an irreversible, debilitating disease, I began medical cannabis research in 2016. Self-taught by reading everything I could about cannabis 6 to 8 hours a day, my friend became an Illinois Department of Public Health cardholder in 2017, and I was her caregiver. After several horrible dispensary visit experiences, I changed dispensaries and became one of Mission Dispensary's first customers a week after they opened. Mission Dispensary is the only dispensary south of Roosevelt Road to 119th Street, east of from the Dan Ryan east to the lake. That's a huge, huge area, and there was only 1 dispensary. after I had such a bad experience with the first dispensary, and I changed dispensaries and became one of Mission Dispensary's first customers a week after they opened, they told me that few customers, and he was trying to be tactful, he said, few customers your age are as knowledgeable as you are and speak and speak as
You
well
love
as you
that,
do.
don't you? You
Well,
love
yeah,
that, don't you?
I
Your
kind of did.
age, right?
Yeah, he was trying to be, but anyway, he wanted me to go around and start talking to senior organizations and senior groups about medical cannabis. Well, that was a new topic then. And so typically it would take a year to get in to talk to anybody about cannabis. But finally, I did manage to get into a senior assisted living site. I got into Oak Street Health Facilities. And my proudest moment was doing a presentation at a conference of 92 churches in the sanctuary about medical cannabis. And I got 2 standing ovations because I opened I eliminated some of the myths and some of the stereotypes about cannabis and talked specifically about the medicinal properties of cannabis. In October 2019, I became Chicago State University's first cannabis instructor. And now my 3rd cohort will start in July as an online course in their 5 cannabis certificate program that will feature an indoor growing project for Illinois Department of Public Health cardholders and caregivers, and those interested in learning how to grow hemp and cannabis. People can register for the 2-class core curriculum that features an optional grow kit and learn how to grow cannabis medicine indoors from seed to harvest. The program will focus on medicinal cannabis for those who want to get well first and get a buzz second. The product will allow for comfortable daytime use and is not an adult use high THC product. In fact, it can be consumed raw with no psychoactive properties or heated to release the THC and get a light buzz. Now, I applied for a dispensary license. I was part of the Cresco Incubator Group as well as the DTI Incubator Group. And now we're all in limbo. I see people lined up and idle, trying to find the invisible door or wait for 75 doors to open, while others invest in ATM machines around the dispensaries that are already open. Or they work all year to create and sell 420 gear. Or they partner with an Italian glass maker and make glass accessories for smoking and dabbing. Or they create online seasonal infused gift baskets. Or they start underground pop-up cannabis dinners and paint and puff parties. And they do some underground transport, okay? But what I'm trying to say is that if you really want to get in, you have to think outside the box. The box was not made for you, not for people of color. And if you want to try to get in, I told my story because it was a story of inching my way in, bootstrapping, starting small, but learning as you go, taking your time, growing, and making sure that you have a track record of excellence. Now, with COVID, we have a unique opportunity to apply for loans that otherwise we would not qualify for under the SBA, the EIDLP, or the PPP loans. Some of them are grants, and they're for legal startups if you have an LLC or a legal entity and any kind of 2019 revenue. Now, everybody should apply. The only thing the worst that can happen is they tell you no. What you don't want to do is have them tell you yes and then overextend yourself by taking out a loan that you cannot repay. But here's an opportunity for you to get started on a small scale, getting into the cannabis industry without a license. Without a license. Recent dispensary looting has caused damage to dispensaries all over the city. And they're going to need general contractors who will need subcontractors that are social equity or from disproportionately impacted areas. Be one. Ask to supply materials or day labor. Be a day laborer. If you're a professional, offer your services as a subcontractor to a prime contractor. They all have disproportionately impacted area hiring compliance requirements. So if you are a DIA contractor, an interior designer, a painter, an electrician, a plumber, or carpenter, ask how to submit a bid to the general contractor or the architect. Get a small job. Get a small job, because then you will see how the process works. You will start building up your understanding of this industry from another perspective. And you will not be impacted by IRS 280E. You will not have them come in and take 30% of your net income at the end of the day. Get ready to work for the new 75. They had at some point they're going to have to make those awards. Okay, they have community engagement, diversity, and environmental plan requirements. There's also the multi-million-dollar annual R3 grant recipients who are going to need professional and contracting services. Stay in that loop so you know who those grant recipients are. In summary, I formed a company called Old Folks Can, CANN, to teach cannabis and pursue a dispensary license and look for a niche while standing outside of the tightly secured, invisible fortress doors designed to prevent social equity access to licenses. The 75 new licenses may now go to a lottery, and then lawsuits are going to follow and delay the awards. And this is how it's played out nationally. Nationally. For years, lawsuits and delays for social equity applicants. It's a war of attrition and a continuation of the war on drugs. Believe that. It is a continuation of the war on drugs. So what can you do? Well, my story is about persistence, gaining skills any way that you can so that you are preparing yourself to succeed. Think big and be willing to take tiny steps towards your dream. A multi-million-dollar 49% equity partner does not guarantee short or long-term success. Take a first or a second job in the cannabis industry. Learn and prepare. Think outside the box and ask yourself, what can I do legally to prepare myself to enter and be successful in the cannabis or the hemp industry? Consider hemp. Look at it as a serious option. It's much cheaper to enter, much lower barriers to entry, thousands of uses for hemp, and more uses created daily. Take the Chicago State University 2-class course series that teaches indoor growing with hands-on experience, or the 5-class certificate program. Invest your stimulus money in your education, your website, yourself, your business startup, and establish yourself as a legal entity. Pay what it's going to take to become an LLC or some other type of entity. Get ready. Form a team, but vet your team very carefully. I'm going to say it one more time. Check out your team. Make sure they have the skills and background that they say they have, because we can all look good on paper. Operate in integrity. Do what you say, how you say, and when you say. And I'm going to go back to check out your team and check out yourself. What skills do you lack? How can you get those skills? Are you really prepared to own a cannabis business? Hire seniors as 20% of your workforce.
20%?
20%.
Why is that?
Well, you got to start. I'm not going to say 1%, and I'm not going to say 50%. I think 20% is reasonable, because once you get 1 out of 5 employees as seniors and you notice the difference in their productivity and in their work ethic, you're going to want to hire more. But my objective is not to have seniors replace ex-offenders. Okay, but my objective is to have seniors have an opportunity to move beyond their fixed income. Seniors have taken the brunt of the war on drugs in their communities for over 40 years. They've watched their once flourishing communities decline, and they've bailed out countless relatives, put money on their books of those that are still in jail, and support them in their basements when they get out of jail and have nowhere to go and no jobs or money. Big Mama and Papa have been carrying the load on fixed incomes under $1,000 a month or on retiree pensions. They are the pillars of the community. Hire them. They can intergenerationally teach work ethics to young ex-offenders or disproportionately impacted area community hires. This may be the younger generation's first and only job. The seniors are going to show up. They're going to get there early. Their parents are going to be up and they're going to be ready to work. And they're not going to stay on their phones, and their baby mama not going to show up looking for child support. Hire 1 out of 5 of your staff over 50. Develop a senior seasonal, part-time help group for holidays, 420, vacation relief. Seniors, just like Amber said, seniors are the fastest growing segment of adult use and recreational cannabis. The average age of Illinois medicinal cannabis users is 62. Finally, plan to succeed. Conquer the fear of failure and the fear of success. Practice meditation and breathing to calm yourself and learn how to manage the stress of this lockdown, because this stress ain't nothing compared to what it's going to be like owning a business, particularly a cannabis business. So create your vision boards, dream big, and hire seniors to be a part of your success story.
Well, Deborah, could you explain a little bit more about hemp and how it relates to all of this?
Well, you know, the first hemp was planted back, not this past May of last year in Illinois. Once the Hemp Act actually legalized the production of it. Now, the first crop that came in November of 2018, trying to do my math right. No, November 2019. It was terrible. Too much rain. They got bad seeds because nobody really knew what they were doing. But the cost of a hemp license is only like about $250. You can buy a 3-year license for something like $700. I mean, it's not hard to get in the game, but you have to have a certain amount of space, because when you apply for the license, it asks you for the latitude and longitude of the area that you propose to plant the hemp. And then the state also has, they've narrowed the type of seeds down to just 3 types. I don't know them right off the top, but there's just 3 types. So when you go to fill out the application, you need to know in advance what the 3 types are, so you put down one of the right 3 types so you don't reject your application. But what's happening is that there's more and more hemp production, more and more hemp processing, not only for CBD, but the actual hemp seeds are being processed and crushed. And when you go into the Mariano's and the Whole Foods and you see olive oil with hemp, or other types of products with hemp, okay, that's from the hemp seed. All right, it's very high in antioxidant, it's very healthy. However, the actual CBD hemp is going to come from the flowers and from the leaves. All right, but you have all the rest of that biomass left of the stalk that they're using. The stalk biomass is stronger than bamboo, so it's being used in to make stuff like they call hempcrete, which is a variation of a type of concrete. They're using it for different types of drywall. I've seen hemp carpet. At one point, or I should say at some point over the next 10 years, Sherman, if you look around your office, everything in your office will be made out of hemp.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So there's tremendous opportunities in the hemp industry. So don't just focus on cannabis. Mm-hmm.
Right. Excellent. Well, Deborah, that was fantastic. And I'm going to open it up to questions. I'm going to start it off. I have a number of questions as each of you have been speaking. I'm going to go with Seun with regards to 2 questions. how many employees do you have? And then what sort of benefits do you offer your employees?
Hey, so right now in Oregon, we have a total of 10 employees. In Massachusetts, we are going to have 3 employees, but right now we are at 10. Our doors will be opening up in Mass in about the Q3, and 30 more employees are on the pipeline to start working.
You said 30?
Yes.
Okay, grand. And what sort of benefits do you offer? Are you going to be offering to your employees?
Yeah, cannabis industry is still federally legal, so it is so hard for us to even get insurance. We pay a lot just in insurance, or for one of our dispensary, we have to pay about $25,000 just for insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a whole year. Now, to get benefits within the cannabis industry is hard, so we're working on it. We just don't have it dialed in yet. But our goal is, as we scale, a benefit mechanism is a part of that.
Okay.
Outside of their pays and different things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you were speaking, you mentioned about how you got involved and what you brought to the business. But what did the business bring to you? What is it bringing to you that you can share with our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I think Amber and Deborah said a lot of the things. When what the business brought to me was a level of understanding, like not all partnerships are great. It gave me a level of focus and understanding that you don't need to know it all in order to succeed. It also brings you a lot of challenges, right? The biggest one, like Amber was saying, is it's still federally illegal, so we have to deal with taxation called 280E. Outside of that, imagine a regular business. If you buy something for $5 and you sell it for $10, a regular business is taxed on $5. A cannabis business is taxed on that $10. I want to make sure I'm answering your question. What did it bring to me? It brings challenges, and it also has some success associated to it. I can talk about the challenges it brought to me, and I can also talk about the success. The money is really good, right? If you structure your company correctly, like Amber said, if you do not structure your company, your entity correctly, you can pay taxation. I tell people, if you do everything right, your taxation should be at 40 to 50%. If you don't do everything right and you don't structure your company and you don't understand what you can write off or what you can't write off, perfect example, in the cannabis industry, let's say you have 2,000 square footage of retail dispensary. Let's say out of the 2,000 square footage, you are only selling cannabis in 500 square footage, and that's where your cannabis items are. You can write off the other 1,500 square footage. You cannot write off 500 square footage, right? If you are, your employees, for example, you have them on payroll. Most companies can write off their employees. In the cannabis industry, you cannot write that off. You can't, you're boom. There's no write-off associated to hiring people or paying people in the cannabis business. So what you can write off is if you have a store manager and they don't touch the plant and they're focused on, let's say that they're focused on just the IT component, or they're focused on just the, hiring, firing, you can write those people off. If they're not there selling the actual product, those employees, if you change their classification and change what they do within the cannabis industry, now you can have a taxation write-off associated to that. So I think, some of the things is knowledge is power. And I tell people all the time, ancillary business, like ATM is a perfect ancillary business where you're charged a soft fee of $3 per transaction. The cannabis industry right now, 80% of it is cash only, due to the fact that there is still federally illegal and no banks wants to do business with us. Like recently, I got my bank closed, and we have to find a new bank. To just put our money in a bank account is difficult. And in Oregon, in the state of about 8 million people, there's only one bank account, one bank that deals with cannabis businesses. And it's you have to wait a year in order for you to even get them to service you. So, you know, I can talk about the pros and cons all days. There's a lot of pros and cons, and what I've learned so far.
So, but it's worth it, right?
Absolutely. If you do it right, I see some people, like I said, I keep tapping into knowledge is power. If you do not do it right, it could, this is why I say this, there's some companies that is highly regulated. If you don't have a compliance officer, someone that's really good, if you yourself as a mom and pop business, you're not good with compliance, you can lose everything.
Yeah.
Because they do random audits. And go ahead, Mr. Bell. Were you gonna say something,
Deborah?
Mr. Bell?
Oh no, I was just agreeing that compliance is the name of the game. You know, it's going to make or break you. And a lot of people are technically astute, but they have no idea. They have not read the laws. They don't understand the laws, and they do not understand the penalties associated with non-compliance. And they should.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Recently, we got broken into in our Eugene store, and our camera caught everything. This gave us the ability to provide a footage. They stole product. It was crazy, right? But because we're so highly regulated, we're able to point the police in the right direction. And the people that broke into our dispensary, they were not really smart because they left the weapons associated to our break-in. So now we have their fingerprints and the camera footage. It gives us now the ability to say, hey, look, you know, we're gonna catch you. But going through the cannabis process is like I said, is really regulated. In Massachusetts, I'm outside one of our shops right now. Actually, just for security, for this shop right here, it cost us $40,000. Security system. Recently we had a state inspection, and our mirrors were not covered up. They wanted it tinted, so we have to get an agency or a contractor to come in and tint our windows. That was one of the reasons the state did not let us open. They said that because we don't have our windows tinted, we can't open. Crazy. Wow. So we just have to get that done.
Or you don't get the license. Let me move to some of the. Yeah, we can hear you. Can you still hear us? Can you still hear us? Can you still hear us?
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to hear you. Hold on.
While you getting that going again, we got some more questions. One question for all of you is, or more for Ms. Dillion, do you need a license to sell CBD products? If so, where do you go to get it?
No, typically you don't need a license to sell CBD products. What you really want to do before you start selling CBD products is make sure that you have the third-party lab test results on all of your products to make sure that your CBD products are what they say they are, and that they have the content that they say they're supposed to be in the bottle. Based on the labeling. What's going to happen is that the DEA is going to get more involved in enforcing CBD because there's been so many scams and fake CBD products on the market. At the rate that CBD is selling now, it's going to be a commodity within the next few years. And again, it's going to be highly regulated. Okay. But no, you don't need a license.
Anyone else want to tackle that question? If not, let's move to the next one. What are some of the main barriers of entry that you have seen in different states? You know, we talk about Oregon, California, Massachusetts. What are some of the main barriers of entry that you've seen in the various states?
So there's three main barriers of entry typically that we see really just overall, but especially affecting Black folks. And it's access to capital, because as Seun just mentioned, it's very expensive to operate a compliant cannabis business and to be in compliance. So access to capital. And because we have issues with access to capital, we have issues with access to real estate, right? Real estate is very important. It's very expensive in cannabis. Typically, the way cannabis is zoned, it's in these green zones where they allow commercial cannabis activity. And of course, the landlords and property owners in those areas are very privy to what's going on, and they typically jack up the rates. It could be anywhere from 3 to 10 times. So, for instance, renting a warehouse space here in Oakland for non-cannabis business is typically $1 a square foot or less. But when it's cannabis, it starts at $3 a square foot. So, you know, the access to real estate, another barrier. Third barrier of entry is access to resources. Because we don't have access to capital, we often can't utilize all the resources that we need. And those resources are in the form of accountants, attorneys, consultants, these experts that we need help on navigating these application processes and all these things. So, you know, putting an attorney on retainer is typically a minimum of $10,000, unless you've got a special relationship with the attorney and they're willing to go lower on that retainer. Same with some of these consultants. You know, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars. I just had to hire a consultant. Now, he gave me a great deal, but I had to hire a consultant for a dispensary project that I'm working on in San Francisco. I'm opening up 2 dispensaries. I hired a consultant for one of the dispensaries and it cost me 20 grand. That's just what it is, you know, and this is for him to help me navigate this process for 3 months. And then we also are just lacking a lot of the, I won't say knowledge, but it's definitely the resources that bring the knowledge, you know? Mm-hmm. So just having really, in my opinion, all of that leads to capital and our access to capital. Whereas we don't have this generational wealth, like Seun was mentioning earlier. He knew someone who said, "Oh, my family gave me $5 million to start this business," or my mom gave me 200 grand to start my business. You know, I don't come from that kind of money. My grandparents migrated from Coldwater, Mississippi to North Chicago back in 1950. And my grandfather was a sharecropper. So he didn't have this kind of money. You know, we didn't come from those things. So what I ended up doing was partnering with somebody who had a little bit of startup capital and wanted to put it into an idea. And I had all the cannabis knowledge. He don't know nothing about weed. So that's how you can make these things work. You know, like if you don't have the money, you got something else that is going to be necessary to make the business work.
What resources and organization affiliations would you suggest to learn and gain more knowledge? I guess that's a question for all of you guys.
Well, I'm going to continue to shamelessly promote Chicago State University. You know, because I think that not only do you learn from the actual coursework, but you learn from your fellow participants in the class. There's a wealth of information. There's a wealth of networking. I'm looking at some of the people that are on the site now that were in some of my classes who teamed with some other people, and they've started networks, the Social Equity Empowerment Network, which was formerly Black Canna Network. And that was so that we could pool our resources, as Seun and Amber have alluded to, you know, and try to achieve some economies of scale, try to reduce our learning curve and understanding the things that we need to know and we know that we don't know. And also to try to maybe share some of our war stories as well as our success stories. Because we learn about other people's success, we learn about other people's trips and falls and in some cases failures. But the idea is, whatever happens, if this is your dream, no matter how many times you trip and you stumble and you fall, get up, dust yourself off and keep moving.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to give Ms. Deborah like a huge shout out. She came to every elevate our community as much as she could, and she was intense about asking questions. She is a firecracker and just one of the smartest lady I know. So I want to say, kudos to her. Talking about resource is more about finding what webinars is going on right now and how can you get access to it. Like this webinar that we're on right now is we have Amber on. We have a tremendous amount of wealth and knowledge of people that have successfully ran a business and made mistakes. So I think things that you're doing right now is a part of that, journey of that, thing that we can continue to do to get more of our people involved.
Thank you, Seun.
Well, for everyone, in your opinion, what are the next states that are slated to legalize, and how soon do you think it will be before this will be legalized federally?
I think the UN is actually meeting up in December to determine whether or not to decriminalize cannabis and remove it from a Schedule I drug. I believe that if that does take place, I also believe sooner than later cannabis will become federally legal. And here's my reasoning. We have COVID-19 that's putting a lot of business out of business. We have a lot of people that are going out of cities. They're suffering due to lack of taxation money coming into their municipalities. They're looking for different ways to generate money and different ways to make up for the loss of COVID due to COVID-19. So I think that a lot more states are going to become more open-minded to cannabis legalization. As you guys can see, compared to 2007 till 2020, cannabis conversation is becoming normalized. Before we used to frown on people that smoke cannabis. Now we are able to sit down and have a discussion about cannabis. 2016, 2001, cannabis would not even be a topic. You're seeing the presidential election right now. Some people are actually running on cannabis legalization. For them to come out publicly and say that cannabis is something they're running on, I think is a hot topic. And I think that cannabis legalization could happen within the next couple of 2 years. Within 2 years, federal legalization could take place.
The World Health Organization, I just read this the other day, they're saying that they believe that cannabis should be legalized globally. And that's a strong statement coming from that type of an organization.
Much so, very much so. Well, I want to again thank all of you, our panelists. I want to thank our viewers and our listeners with regards to this, our webinar by the Quad County African American Chamber of Commerce. This is our third and final fair that we have put on. We've had some excellent presentations, and you will be able to go to our website, which is again www.quadcountyAAchamber.org, and you can be able to watch and listen to these webinars that we've had. Again, we want to thank all of our panelists for being with us today. You provided great information that I think most of us, our listeners, and from the, well, naturally now I'm getting more questions to ask, but we are at a time of, we've gone past our time. But again, I want to thank you. Again, the Quad County African American Chamber of Commerce based in Aurora, Illinois. We are continuing to work to help get African Americans in the cannabis industry as owners, and we will continue to work. So those of you on the call, you will, once you send us your email address, which we have through your Zoom information, we will continue to stay in contact with you. So to Seun, to Amber, to Deborah, again, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all you.
Thank you.
Continued success, and keep going. And we will continue to reach out to you, and anything that we can do to help you, we will be there to do it. So again, everyone, have a great afternoon, great weekend, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye. Stay elevated.
Oh, yes.